So it ain't that bad, right? It ain't
Yeah.
like getting a freaking shot or something.
No.
Okay. Describe your house in detail. I don't know which house you want to describe, but
Oh
that's
my
up
God,
to
I
you.
had a few houses.
Well, tell us about your houses. How many houses? Tell me how many houses you lived in. What was your
I was counting that last night because there was an
okay
ad
when you
on
grew
TV.
up? When you grew up or born,
I
where
lived
were?
in about 11 houses. Yeah.
Well, go ahead. Tell me about.
Well, when I was born, I lived in Camden, South Camden, and when I was about 2 or 3, they moved to Runnymede, New Jersey, and I lived there till I was 11 years old. And we didn't own the house, so the lady wanted to make apartments out of it, so we had to move. And we moved back to Camden, but it was Kramer Hill, and I was devastated. And they put me in this school in 6th grade. And when I got to the school, this old lady was my grandmother was lived with us, and my mother and father worked, and it was my grandmother, and she sent me off to school. And I go into this class, and this lady's beating up all the boys. She's slamming them against the blackboard,
The
and
teacher.
yeah, and I am in tears, but I'm not showing her. I'm like dying inside. I went home for lunch, and I says to I says to my grandmother, "I'm not going back to after lunch." "Oh yes, you are," she said. I said, "No, I'm not, and I wouldn't go back." So after that, I got heart palpitations, and I had them for 3 weeks because I did not want to go to this school. And finally, my mother, if you lived on one side of 28th Street, you went to that school. And if you lived across the street, you went to Sharp School in Kramer Hill. Well, what happened was my mother takes me to the doctors. I have this palpitations for 3 weeks, can't get rid of it. They let me go to this other school because I was so nervous and upset about this. And finally, the palpitations left, but it took about 3 weeks. And I went to that school, and going from one school to the other was devastating at that age, like 11, 12, and I did very poor. And my mother had to help me every night with my homework, and I ended up getting on the honor roll at the end of the year with my mother's help.
Okay.
And then after that, I went to Veterans Junior High School. So I lived there till I met your father
Lived where? Where are we at?
in the Kramer Hill.
Okay.
Till I met your father in 1961 and 1962. I left there and moved in with your grandmother Porr, and that lasted about 3 weeks because it was hard being a newlywed living with somebody. And so then we got our own apartment on Tulip Street, and we lived there until that got expensive because that was a brand new apartment. So then we moved to 6739 Dittman Street in an apartment. And
Where is that compared to like Grandma
well, your
Porter's?
grandmother Porr lived at 6315, and we moved to 6739, so it was further north.
Okay,
Born toward Cotman or whatever.
okay.
And when I lived there, it was an older place, and a woman that owned it, that rented it, was very old. And her son was a World War II vet, and he was shell shocked. He was not right. And it was sad. But one day I'm combing my hair and my bureau, and my mirror was here, and the door to my apartment, I could see who was at the door, and he's looking in like this at me. And then, so I let that go and I shut the door, but he scared me. I was a young girl, you know. I go out to do wash, and I had all this wash hung up on the yard, and he's running in between the wash, playing peekaboo with me. Well, somebody might think that's harmless, but I was scared of that. So I would I had you then. It was just you and me. Dad worked like night work. So I packed us up and I went to your grandmother Poor's crying. I was scared of that. The police were called and they said they couldn't do anything because he never touched me. In the meantime, about so many months later, I'm pregnant, and this guy's still doing all this stuff looking in my door. I lost a baby.
Okay.
All over that. I believe it was over that. So anyway, make a long story short, we got out of that lease because we went and told the woman I lost a baby. I was scared, you know, and I felt sorry for that lady because that was her income, and like he couldn't help that, you know, sad. So then we moved to Nottingham,
Okay.
and my parents helped us with money, but Dad was a vet, so we had a VA loan, and We lived there. Then you know the rest because you were in the,
Yeah, but we're on video here, so you can tell us.
Oh, so after we stayed there for 18 years, had a lot of financial problems because Dad was out of work for a year at a time sometimes, and me too. Both of us, that happened. That happened twice. That both of us were out of work the same year, and you never catch up from that. That's really tough when you're raising a family. So then we sold that house and we moved to Rambler Road, and we
Right.
stayed.
I was in the Marines
Yeah,
and
you were in the Marines then, but we had to do it because we owed back rent, not rent, mortgage and everything. So we had to get rid of that house. And meantime, though, my mother lived with us, and we had added an upstairs, but she would not move with me. So she moved next door with Jackie Weigel, who was a lovely lady, and my mother had her own room. And she could, like, she didn't want to live in the city because she couldn't go to the senior center and no transportation. So we stayed there, and then I forget where we moved.
well, after Rambler, wasn't it 720? No, Bridgetown Pike, or was
Yeah.
it 729 Sparrow?
Oh, it was 729 Sparrow Lane. We moved
Okay,
there. We rented that. It was a condo.
and that was right by the railroad.
Yeah, in Langhorne. That had a Langhorne address.
Pendle.
Yeah, but it had a Langhorne address. And after that,
That was
then we went to
Bridgewater.
Bridgetown Pike. We were like gypsies. We moved all around. And lived in Bridgetown Pike. That was in 19, I don't know, but we left there in 1996
Yeah.
because we bought the house on Hollybrook Drive in
Okay.
1996. Stayed there 9 years, and Dad was going to retire, so we thought we couldn't afford to live here. It was very expensive to live in this area being retired, so we sold that house and moved to the mountains, and I lived there 11 years, and Dad passed away after the sixth year, and I stayed five by myself, and then I moved back here in 2016.
Okay.
And my next move is 6 feet under. No. Hopefully.
So, what was your favorite house? Favorite home?
uh, Nottingham, because there was a lot of great memories,
Okay.
and we knew all the neighbors, and it was a real nice place for you kids to grow up.
Okay. So, what was the happiest time in your life?
Oh, there's a few. When I met your dad.
Okay.
Don't make me cry. Don't make me cry.
Okay. um. Okay. If you had the opportunity to change anything, what would it be?
Oh my God.
Some of these are off the
Well,
wall.
no, I think everybody has some things they would have changed, but I guess it's meant to be the way it is. Well,
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
What are you? What are the? What would you like to share with your descendants? Philosophy of life, religious beliefs, encouragement. What would you
Okay.
want to tell them?
I would tell them, be honest with yourself and others. Don't be a phony. I really, you're not fooling anybody but yourself because most people get phonies. And also, don't sweat the little stuff. It took me a lifetime to get that, but it all gets taken care of somehow. You come through it, you know?
Okay. Um, you already described your childhood house, a couple of them. Okay. Did you have your own room?
Uh, yeah, I think I did. Wait, no, not till my sister got married. I gotta put my
Right
nose.
there.
No,
Can
that's
you
a napkin.
can you hit pause?
No, I don't know where it is.
This is the double.
So what was the question?
Well, I'll see. Oh, did you have your own room?
Oh, not till my sister got married.
Okay. Um, you had running water, electricity,
Oh yeah, it wasn't a beautiful house though.
toilet, telephone.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't have a telephone until I was a teenager. I was Well, I think my sister was a teenager and I was maybe 13, 12, 13. And we begged to get a phone when we finally got one. And then when we got the phone, it was a four-party line phone. Like you would pick up the phone and somebody would be on there. You had to wait till they got off.
4 parties.
Oh, yeah. And when you would talk to your friends or your boyfriend, you could hear somebody pick up the phone and listening, and you'd say, "Get off." And we knew who it was. It was like the neighbor across the street, one of them. She owned a store. And we'd say, "Zelda, get off the phone."
Zelda?
Yeah, her name was Zelda. And that was real interesting. But even when I met your father, we still had a four-party line.
Yeah, well, they had like a 2 party or something, didn't they?
Oh,
They
yeah,
said that
yeah.
they
Then
told the
they
same
later,
kind of stories.
yeah, they went from four-party to two-party. Probably when I met your father was a two-party.
When did you get a television? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I was 11 years old, and we were one of the last
Wait,
ones.
you got a TV before the phone?
Yeah, we got a TV, and I'm pretty sure it was Runnymede. Yeah, because I remember um, my grandmother watching the Democratic convention with Dewey running against.
Truman?
This is all coming out how old I am. Yeah, Truman. I remember my grandmother. She was a news freak like me, and she watched all that black and white. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was 11 because I remember.
How big was this thing?
You know what? I remember a commercial, and they would sing about the Packard car, and it would say Packard is the one for 51. So it was 1951, and we had a TV.
That's funny. I think
That's
there's a
10.
receipt for Grandpa Porr in some of the stuff of
Really?
something Packard, a
Really? Oh
52 or
yeah.
56 or something.
They probably have one too.
Um. Okay. So uh, what'd you do before the TV came in the house?
Radio. You listen to the radio, and you listen to The Shadow and all these stories. My grandmother, though, every day when I was a little girl, she would listen to Stella Dallas was a soap opera on the radio. I can't remember the others, but and then 12 o'clock noon, I had to be quiet because Kate Smith sang "God Bless America"
At noon?
every day at noon on the radio.
Okay.
And my grandmother idolized her. She thought she was wonderful. And I would have to be quiet. Be quiet, the Kate Smith's coming on. She was funny.
And she sang "God Bless America."
Every day. Yeah.
Okay. That must be where the
You can look,
Flyers must have
yeah,
got
you
it
can look
from. It
that up,
was
but
like,
that's true. Yeah.
um, okay. How was your house heated?
Oil. Oil.
Okay. And the oil truck would come and
Yeah. Yeah, it was dirty, dirty heat too. The walls would be yellow from that.
okay. Um, describe the city and town which you grew up in.
Well, I'd like to describe Kramer Hill because they were my favorite years. When I was 11,
Okay.
I
Well,
moved there, and I didn't like it at first. Like I said, I was all upset, and they had to take me out of one school, put me in another. But then I met my friend Jane and my friend Dee, and met all the boys in the neighborhood, and we all hung together. It was one big crowd, and I loved it. It was the best time, of my childhood. I wasn't childhood; I was a teenager then, but yeah, we all went to dances together and movies and stuff.
what was the first radio show you remember hearing? If you listened to it, did you have any special things that you listened to or type of
No,
shows?
no. But you know what I remember? My father every night, he was another news junkie. Every night, I don't know whether it was on the weekend or every night of the week. 9 o'clock at night, Walter Winchell came on with the news, and he would say, "All the ships at sea, let's go to press." And then he would tell the news. And one time I talked when the news was on, and my father said, "Shut up," because they wanted to hear it. And you couldn't play back then, you know. And I kept talking, so he slapped me. That's the only time my father ever slapped me.
Yeah.
Well, I shut up, you
Yeah. Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember that. But you know what? I also remember my brother, who was 12 years older than me. He was into all these. He had a lot of records, and he would sing along with Frank Sinatra records, and he would have his girlfriends over, and Lee and I would peek around the corner. They'd be sitting on a sofa, and he'd be singing to the girlfriends to this record,
Yeah.
you know. And we'd be like behind the sofa, and we'd put our head, and he'd say, "Get back in that room," you know. We really harassed
How
him.
old? How much older was he than
To
you?
me, he
Yeah.
was 12 years older.
Okay. And
Yeah,
your sister was
about 3.5, 4 years older.
okay. What was the first TV show you remember seeing?
Oh wow.
Was your
Uh, it was a cowboy show. My grandmother used to watch it every night at 6 o'clock. Uh, Western Frontier or something. I don't remember the name.
what was your favorite?
I don't remember having a favorite.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Good enough. Did you have a refrigerator or an ice box?
Oh, well, when I was a real little kid, I remember an ice box, and I remember the iceman coming and bringing the ice.
Yeah.
But then we finally had a refrigerator. But I was pretty young when we had an ice box. Yeah, there was an Iceman came around. There was a rag man came around. I don't know what they did with the rags. I don't get that.
What do we got on it?
24.
Okay. Um, was there a vegetable
Yeah.
garden?
Oh no. Oh
Fruit
yeah.
trees?
We had a victory garden all along the side of the house, even though we didn't own that
What
house.
the Victory Garden was to help with the war?
Yeah, and you grew your own stuff. We grew everything, and we even had grapevines on the side of the house, and we made jelly with that. And all winter long, we had jars of food in the cabinet.
So you canned them,
Yeah, my grandmother canned them, and
everything.
my mother and father. Yep, every year.
Okay. And you used that a lot?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. Uh, did you store food in the cellar, or did you have cabinets, or what?
The cabinets in the kitchen went from, like, they were really long, like it was old fashioned, that house.
Okay. What kind of chores did you have as a child before
None.
school, after school? None, really?
No, I was spoiled. My sister, like later on when we were older, she would start the dinner,
hmm
but like once my grandmother passed away, but I never really had to do that. You know.
You didn't help earn any money to support the family. You didn't have to
No,
do that.
no, no.
Okay. What was your favorite toy?
When I was little, I had a little bunny I carried around. But then when I was around 10 years old, I had a doll. I loved it. I kept it till I was like 12. I don't know whatever happened to it.
Okay.
But it usually was dolls.
What was your favorite thing to do as a kid?
Well, when I was real young, it was dancing. But then I got to an age that I wasn't interested in that, but I still had to do it. I was told I had to do it. When I was 12 years old, I wanted to quit dancing, and I
Yeah.
told my sister, and she told my mother, and my mother said, "Well, it's not happening." And I had to do it till I was 18 years old. I'm not that, and you
Why
notice
why did she make you do that? Why?
because that was her dream. She wanted me to do that.
Ah,
But you know what's funny? I would have to go up and practice in my bedroom for like 2 hours a day, and all my teenage friends were out there hanging around. I was dying. I wanted to be out there,
yeah.
and isn't that funny? Like you didn't question it, you just did it. You never gave any crap. You just did it.
Okay.
I didn't want to, but and half the time I really wasn't doing it. I'd be shuffling my feet up there like I was doing it, but but I still would not like defy her. Do you know what I mean?
uh Okay. What was Christmas morning like? What was a typical gift back
We
then?
didn't get a lot of Christmas. That's the truth. That sounds like I got my violin out, but not really. We got what we needed. But I remember this story. Lee and I were pretty young, and I had an Aunt Clara, and she was my grandmother's sister. And she never had any children. She practically raised when my mother was very young, getting a divorce, and but she had to go out and work. So this aunt raised him, but she must have bought our Christmas stuff because this one Christmas, and then from then on, I never believed in Santa, and I had to be about 4, 5. But Lee and I, for some reason, were laying in the living room, sleeping, supposed to be sleeping,
Yeah.
And I hear them, and it's my mother, my father, and this aunt, and she's telling them where to put the gifts. And I thought, I don't like this. And I thought, there's no Santa. This is her, you know. But I guess if she didn't buy us gifts, we might not have got hardly anything then, you know. But when we were older, like teenagers, we got like one clothing. That was it. It was never a big
Right. It
thing.
got out of hand.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna stop and we'll
Okay.
do another one.